So today I am joined by plus size personal trainer, author of the book Bigfit Girl, which we'll discuss was a huge game changer for me, and the kind of owner of the Bigfit Girl brand and app. She is trying to change the fitness game and fight for more representation within the industry. Welcome, Louise Green.
Thank you. So great to actually talk to you.
I know. We've kind of connected a bit like through social media and things, but it's so nice to actually get to talk to you because, as I said, I'm such a huge fan of your work, and your book has been a huge, like I said, was a huge catalyst in me changing direction as a personal trainer and finding a personal trainer whose ethos I related to was so exciting. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
How are you doing in general? We should just get the kind of lockdown chat out the way because as we're recording, we are all in the midst of this pandemic. So how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Things were really a little bit disappointing because I had some really promising projects on the go that required travel. So everything was canceled. But I think, those will resurrect at some point. But I was just feeling like in the beginning of the year, like this year is looking really promising. And then, just another testament to we can't control things outside of ourselves. So you just have to roll with it. But as we were talking before we started, my job is a lot of working from home and doing content from home. So my job, so to speak, really hasn't changed. As far as that, I feel like I'm in isolation quite often as a lone entrepreneur. So that's fairly normal. But like I said, we're starting to lift some of the really strict restrictions here in Canada. And that feels really exciting and promising. So I'm feeling really optimistic.
Have you been allowed to go out for like daily exercise and things like that? Or has it been strictly stay at home?
It's kind of been a bit of a blurred line. They say, go out to do your exercise, but you're not supposed to socialize there can't be any gatherings and so what's happening here is that lots of people are going outside, and then it's creating this, I think people are misunderstanding what it actually means because I'm seeing large groups and, a lot of people out and about. So I've mostly stayed home and done my workouts.
Me too, actually. I've just kind of felt like I'm fortunate to have a bit of equipment at home, a few things, and being trainers, you kind of know what your body needs. So you can kind of like figure it out for yourself. So I've done the same actually. So I wanted to start at the beginning, so to speak, because I know that you came to be a personal trainer a bit further on, like you had a previous career and you didn't just start personal training. So I would love for you to tell people your story and how you discovered a love for fitness.
My relationship with fitness, like many people, was very punitive for many years, and it solely was a tool to manipulate my body. I did not understand why anyone would get sweaty otherwise. Like, why would you? So it was always about, if I sweat more, I can eat more. If I, then I can create more deficit and all of that stuff. So that's really what the primary focus was. And in one of those attempts to, go on my weight loss journey, yet again, I thought I would become a runner, because I would look at my running magazines and they would be skinny women, almost like sinewy. And I'd be like, yes, if I run, I'm going to be skinny. So that's my ticket. And I joined this run clinic here in Vancouver. And on the first night, petrified, absolutely terrified that I was this imposter. Everybody else was a real runner. I was like this person that everyone thought had lost, was at the wrong place. we went into the clinic, and this woman stood up before us and introduced herself as our run leader. And I was so surprised to see that she had a plus size body. And this was in probably 2005. So there was no Instagram, Facebook barely existed. Media magazines was really all there was at that time, where I could see inspiration for fitness. Isn't that weird to think about? Like, there was no social media. And they never, ever showed any size diversity in fitness magazines. So it was strictly extremely thin women. And so literally, this was the first woman that I had seen proclaiming to be a fitness leader and an athlete in a plus size body. And I was so taken back by her. And I trained with her for 12 weeks, and she profoundly changed my life, because she was the first person that never even mentioned body size. It wasn't like when we came back and did our run, guess how many calories you just burned, or, if you run further, you can get leaner. There was never any talk about bikini season coming, or, no motivation by like changing your body size. It was all about digging deep as an athlete. And she didn't even acknowledge my body size. It just wasn't even part of the factor. It was just, you're an athlete, let's do this. And I had never experienced that in fitness. I had never seen it. I'd never experienced it. And I just kind of, like, this light went on, like, can I actually do this and it not be about trying to lose weight? Like, this woman is plus size and she's not trying to lose weight. Actually, not only was she the first woman that I'd seen in fitness leadership and as an athlete, she was the first larger woman I had seen or met that wasn't trying to lose weight. Like, it wasn't part of her syntax. She just wasn't part of her.
And I still think that's really rare. I still think, that it feels different and unusual to find. Like, I still think it's particularly in the context of fitness.
It's very unusual to find a woman that is, like, very comfortable and happy with her body. Like, and that's not even a size thing. That is that's a feminist issue. And that's very sad to me. Like, that is one of the world's biggest tragedies, as far as I'm concerned. So when I trained with this woman, like I said, it profoundly changed everything. I was like, I can actually just be an athlete. I can actually run the distance. I can do the things. And I didn't lose weight. My body is one of those bodies that I fought for years. I would do the commercial weight loss programs, and I would be like white knuckling it all week, hungry. And I would get on the scale and they'd be like, yay, you've lost 0.1 of a pound or something like that. And I'd be like, I can't do this for 0.1 of a pound. I can't. And I just have a certain body type that's heavy and it's thick. And I always thought that I had control over that I could somehow become this sinewy person on the front of a running magazine, when in fact my genetics will never allow that. It never will. So I trained with her. I went on to train with other coaches. I did the 5Ks, I did the 10Ks, because I had the switch in. This was no longer about punitive measures or manipulation. It was like about achievement and physical power. I went to do half marathons. I went on to do triathlons. I went to do Olympic triathlons. I went into doing long distance cycling events where we were on our bikes for 250 kilometers. I left my job as a talent agent, and I'll just speak to that briefly. My job as a talent agent, I worked at one of Canada's largest talent agencies in the country, where we had the top talent in Canada. And I was in charge of the commercial roster. So I was dealing with the most idealistic, beautiful people that walk the Canadian country. And still they weren't good enough. The producers were still giving them feedback like, you have to whiten your teeth, or you have to, lose some weight, or, you're too old to be a mom. They were casting moms at that time as 20-year-olds. So like, I became a mom when I was 37. Like 20-year-olds are, sometimes moms, but that's what they want to portray as a mom, a very young, fit, yummy mummy. And when we push that imagery out into the world, that's on our sight line, and then we have this comparative. So I was doing very soul-sucking work while on the weekends and in the evenings running beside this new coach, feeling so powerful, and then going back into my job on Monday morning and eventually it didn't reconcile.
Yeah, was it a case of feeling empowered and then going to work and just feeling like, oh, I stepped outside that bubble a little bit, and like, this is the reality? And it's tough. I think just on social media, in a sense, I feel like I've created a really nice bubble on social media of people like yourself who share a similar message and approach, and then you kind of step outside that bubble and you're like, oh, in the last 24 hours, we've had one of the biggest the number one trending topic on Twitter was Adele posting a picture of herself at her birthday and losing weight. And that became the main topic of conversation. And it's so interesting that like whether it's like your run club or with the people you spend time with, like you're like, oh, actually the rest of the world still holds on to this narrative, still is in that kind of place.
Yes. And I'm from the UK as well. I was born in Liverpool, and I was in London in 2017 doing part of my book tour. And I have to say that I found the UK to be very focused on those type of topics about bodies, and I think it's because like our newspaper industry here is really dead. There isn't really, people don't buy them anymore. Whereas I found in the UK, like they're still very much there. You go into any subway and they're almost like,
it's tabloids. Yeah, they are. They're tabloids and they're sensationalist, and they're just looking for a headline. And we love talking about weight in the British press and discussing people's bodies and any fluctuation. And I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised you got that reaction. I think even as a country in general, we're just still very interested in, like I said, our body, our weight, what we're eating, what we're doing with this focus, like you said, of manipulation. And I think that is really common. But hopefully, hopefully things like this podcast can help, and your book can help kind of start this new narrative. What was it like to leave your job, and kind of, did you feel like you were taking a gamble going to be a personal trainer? Did you feel like that was a gamble, or did you, I don't know, was it just pure passion and excitement?
I was so done with my job that I was ready to even do a faceplant into failure, if that's what it meant.
Yeah.
I was just ready. And so what had happened is one of my coaches asked me to co-run these 10K running clinics with her. So I actually had been a volunteer run leader for several years before I left my job. So I had really, running in the pouring rain with people saying, I can't do it. And me just like one day saying, this is my calling. This is it. I have to champion and give back to others what was given to me through that one woman. Chris was her name. Because like I said, that the women believing that they are less than the amazing human beings that they are is the world's biggest tragedy to me. And the negative narrative that so many people have going on in their heads is stopping them from living to their highest potential.
Yes.
And so this is not just about fitness for me. This is about overall acceleration of women and taking back their power, because as long as we are being controlled in that way, we are not going to rule the country. We are not going to have these leadership positions because we are too preoccupied, because we only have a certain amount of mental real estate.
Oh, I am so with you on this one. Yeah, this is exactly where my headspace is. And even in my book, I wrote in my book, you know, if you'd asked me to have written that book 5 years ago when I was deep in diet culture and I was just super concerned with what I was eating and what my workouts were my next workout was and all this stuff, I had no headspace. I never thought I would write anything. I didn't think I was capable of it. I didn't believe in myself. And yeah, the fact that I did that, I'm shocked myself, but I think it's because I've been able to, and I like to say, like, when you're kind of stepping away from dieting and diet culture itself, you kind of get to like delete a few files in your brain, and it's like your brain computer has more storage, and you can start to like take on board new information and get interested in things. I mean, part of me, and I don't know if you found this as well, but part of me finding myself through fitness has been kind of finding my feminism, finding my path to feminism, because I don't know, that was how I kind of like you said, like, I'm so passionate about people, particularly women, like fulfilling their potentials, because then we're going to have these world leaders who are doing incredible things, you know, because we're not feeling like, oh, you know, when I weigh X amount or when I look a certain way, I will then go for that job. I will then be able to speak up in a meeting, or, you know, and I think it's so, there's such a connection between, you know, feeling empowered through the run club and taking that into like other areas of your life. And I think that's, I think that's really exciting that, yeah, we're both on the same page there, because I think more women need to hear this. I hope people are excited already by hearing you speak, because I'm inspired. I wanted to ask you about when you were running your 5Ks and 10Ks, because I think in your book you wrote about people's reactions to when you said you were running a half marathon, or people assumed because of the size of your body that you were just running the 5K or doing a charity race kind of thing. They didn't take you seriously. Am I putting words in your mouth there? Or?
No, that's happened all the time. Like, it's a daily occurrence. Yeah, I remember specifically going to my first half marathon. I flew to San Francisco and I went up to the table to get my race package, and they didn't even ask me which race I was doing. They just immediately went to the 5K box to get my race information. And so, yeah, so there is an assumption just based on how I look, and I've had that through a lot of different scenarios. So I don't really blame people though. Like, it's like, because they're seeing what I'm seeing on a daily basis, right? They're not seeing size diversity laced through our fitness culture. They're not seeing women of size celebrating who they are and loving who they are and excelling as an athlete as they are. They're seeing women that want to reduce their body size and the diet culture message. So I as irritating as it is sometimes, I don't begrudge people, because why would they think any differently?
Yeah, blame the system, not the individual, I think.
Yeah.
And how have you found it becoming a personal trainer? I speak to a lot of people who want to be personal trainers, want to work in the fitness industry, and I think a lot of what holds people back is they think, I don't look like a stereotypical fitness trainer. And I think there's even an element of people who, whether they be plus size or whether they're just not that kind of cover of your fitness magazine, six-pack abs look, even, you know, a lot along the spectrum, I think people feel like, I have to look like this exact person. I have to look like, I have to have visible abs. I have to have these defined arms, you know, because people aren't seeing size diversity. They're not seeing, you know, different people doing different activities. And I think, yeah, what was the reaction of you kind of going to the fitness industry? And did you feel like as a trainer you were taken seriously?
Well, one of the things is that as soon as I was certified, I started my own business. So I didn't have to go into gyms and apply for jobs. I think that that would be really difficult as somebody that looks like me. I think it would have to be a very specific gym setting where, you know, that gym kind of was straddling, or, you know, we have a chain here in North America called Planet Fitness, and their tagline is, I don't know, something along the lines of everyone's included or something like that. So they're trying really hard to have a diversity message, and that's a new thing in fitness culture. So back in 2007, if I were to walk into a gym at the size that I just had a baby, so I was the biggest size I'd ever been. I think it would have been really difficult. And that is one of the reasons why I started my own business. So I didn't really, even though I was a fitness professional and I was working within the fitness industry, I was very on my own. And I think it's taken many, many years of the industry seeing what I've accomplished to gain the respect.
And you've done more than most. Like, what you're doing is incredible. And I think, I mean, to name a few things, you're running, you've got your own kind of fitness classes, but you also do like retreats and surf camps and all these things. And you've done a TED Talk and you've written a book. And these are incredible accomplishments by anyone's standards, let alone someone who doesn't traditionally feel seen or represented within the fitness industry. How do your clients respond to that? What's the feedback you get from people who come to your classes or go to a retreat? Is it just I don't know, is it a sense of relief or just finding people that just relate to them?
Yeah, I think it's very much that. We ran a retreat in Tulum, Mexico in November, and I think there was 20 women there.
Wow.
And I'm still on the WhatsApp chat with them, and they talk every day. There is a connection, there's a lifetime connection been built there. And I'm a really strong believer that people that sweat together stay together, especially if it's done in a really inclusive environment. But I think people they feel a sense of belonging that they've never felt in any fitness environment before. And that's a pretty big deal.
It's so huge. I mean, I don't know if you saw about this time last year, actually, I can't believe it's been a year already, we had Nike had their plus size mannequins in store in their London flagship store, because I know that plus size women were behind pushing for that representation. And it was a kind of, well, we had this one article released that was like vocally anti the mannequin, and it was actually really refreshing to see, well, from my perspective, a vast majority of people saying, hang on a second, this is ridiculous. Of course, people of all shapes and sizes should be catered for when it comes to being able to find activewear. But when you first started getting into fitness, you know, what were there barriers of like finding activewear? I know in your book you list, you know, how to find plus size friendly activewear and the right equipment and the right clothing. And what have those barriers been like? And do you see with people like Nike starting to kind of pay attention?
I definitely see that there's changing times. Like I said, I started in 2007. And so I would say that the real shift here has probably happened in the last 5 years, where, you know, I have a resource list of 50 retailers that have plus size activewear that are really nice. They're not like, you know, the oversized cotton tents that everyone, or the man's t-shirt or whatever. These are like nice designed activewear for plus size women. And so that aspect of it has really come a long way. I also see brands coming to the table where you're seeing more size inclusion in just general brands around fitness and health. Also, just the opportunities that I've been able to have as a fitness professional, it took a very long time to get a book deal because many of the publishers were like, fat people don't want to exercise. There's just not a market. That's literally what they were saying to me, 30 different publishers. And so for 2 years, I tried to get a book deal, and then it happened. And then the second book that I'm writing now, it just came to my inbox. It just landed in and they said, can you write this book? So those type of opportunities that were not there, they were off the table for plus size women, are much more being able to go as a speaker at conferences and talk about sizeism to ad professionals. Those opportunities are more steadfast, where people are like, wait a minute, there is an audience here that we're greatly ignoring. And not only should we morally support this audience, but we're missing a massive financial opportunity if we don't.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get why it's just not, of course, like, by reducing your size range, you're reducing the amount of people you can reach, you're limiting your brand visibility. And I think some of that is kind of, I think sadly it's, fat phobia. I think it's people thinking we don't want to, I think in the past it's been snobbery of like, we don't want to be associated with certain things. I know the way fashion houses talk about plus size clothing collections, and they think thin is aspirational and all this crap, to be honest. But I mean, one of my favorite brands, I don't know if you're aware of it, they're called Girlfriend Collective or Girlfriend. And they do like the best size range. They are the most diverse on social media. They don't talk about it, they just do it. And the best thing is it's all environmentally friendly. So it's kind of like you've got this win-win-win. They're this huge, cool fashion brand. Everything's really cute and, like lovely colors and, cool designs. And they're just doing it. And they're not making a song and dance about it. They're just showing different people in different bodies of like, it's not just different shapes and sizes, it's ages and abilities and all these things that we need representation for. Because like you said, I think the fitness industry is only better off if more people want to participate in it.
100%. But there's a lack, where I really see a lack in opening up that door is it comes from the top in the education system of how personal trainers are educated. So we're not talking about health at every size. We're not talking about size inclusivity. We're not talking about body positivity. We're not talking about any of the things that are progressively driving a feminist movement right now in the education system for personal trainers.
And yeah, I am totally with you on that one. It's a personal mission of mine to kind of change that in the UK. I have plans for this. Maybe we can collaborate, make it international. Because I think you're so right. It does start with the education. And I think there are still many personal trainers, because I see these people I work with. I work in a studio with other freelance trainers, and I get to hear the conversations, and it's kind of like being a fly on the wall. And I think it keeps, in some ways it's good for me because it keeps me aware of actually what's going on in the industry. And I think that absolutely it's, a lot of personal trainers are still assuming that anyone above a certain size walking into the gym is there to lose weight. And if that's not one of their goals, they're lying, or they're still, or I also think, and I don't know if it's the same in Canada that you found, that personal trainers measure their success with a client based on whether that client has had some sort of transformation or lost weight. And their body couldn't have, with my clients, I'm not bothered if their bodies change or not. I'm interested in, like you said, making them run faster, run further. Can they do a press up? Are they increasing their strength and stamina and their confidence and how they feel? And I think those are the markers I'm looking at to gauge whether we're seeing improvement and progress. And I think a lot of personal trainers in the fitness industry is still stuck in the mindset of success equals thinness, and that is going to be a big narrative to unlearn. And you're right, it totally starts with education. And like I said, I was getting disillusioned with the industry anyway, hadn't truly understood what HAZE was, was aware of body positivity, read your book and was like, damn, this is it. this is what it is. And I think, you know, hopefully both you and I, as trainers, having books like this out there, and hopefully your next book. Am I allowed to ask what your next book's about? Is that top secret, or?
I'm allowed to say what it's about, but I'm not allowed to say what it's called. So basically it is going to be a very visual book, and
Ooh.
it will have, it's a book of 50 exercises with variations. So we're going to have older people, disabled people, pregnant people, fat people, all in the imagery, so that it's really about representation and fitness for everyone.
Oh, I can't wait. I cannot wait. And you have the Bigfit Girl app as well. So how has that been how have you found the response to that? And I also wanted to ask, from a kind of a personal trainer perspective, because I do know that there are other trainers who tune into this podcast as well, from a technical perspective, how you have catered for people in larger bodies and how you may adapt exercises or what you take into consideration when working with people who are plus size. Because I think a lot of personal trainers, me included, in the past have just kind of assumed that everyone moves the same, everyone does the same, and we don't take into consideration individuals' needs, and that different bodies move differently and that they need to be catered for and feel welcomed. So can you share a bit of insight from your perspective as a trainer and having your app and things like that?
So one of the things that I really noticed on the market was a lack of availability for fitness for people that can't stand up for lengths of time. So what scares me about that is that once they can't move or stand up, then they're grasping onto their mobility, and then because there's not much available, they start to slip into immobile. And so I was dealing with people that were saying, I want to do your workouts, but I can't stand for more than 10 minutes for whatever reason. So one of the ways that we have adapted fitness in the app is there is a whole chair section, and then there's a chair assisted section so that they can graduate from the chair to then maybe, you know, standing up and holding a chair for balance and stability. And then they go into a beginner section, and then they can go into a more advanced section. So it's really taking from people that can't stand up all the way to higher intensity workouts. Some of the differences for people that have mobility issues or larger bodies is just spatial differences, right? So when we're saying, okay, we're going to do a forward fold, and, you know, we're going to like stretch our hamstring by putting our heel out and bending over. Well, if you have a lot of weight in the front, that's just not going to work for you. Or you're really bending over with a lot of weight in the front, now you're straining on the back. So it's really about trying to find ways in which we can understand how the spatial differences work without, you know, calling someone out in the middle of the room. Because, you know, when I talk about spatial differences, I say it with no attachment whatsoever, right? But for somebody that's new, that's coming in, they'd be mortified that they, you know, that we're talking about their stomach or whatever, weight between the legs or whatever. So the other thing that I do, I actually don't really teach people in person anymore. It's all online. But when I did teach fitness in person, really understanding the level of fear and intimidation that people experience. So for example, I ran outdoor boot camps for 10 years for plus size women. And I've had people tell me that they circled the block and they couldn't get out of their car. They saw us, they couldn't do it. I've had people say that they came, they started to have a panic attack, they had to leave. Like, these are true stories. And a lot of people that I've worked with have something that I call fitness trauma. And it's based around the consistent not being accepted or included or being made fun of. So this can date back to elementary school, where people were bullied or they were pushed way too hard by a physical education coach when they just aren't that kid, you know, like the kid that's just not athletic. They were forced to wear gym strips that didn't fit them. They were spilling out of them. Everyone was laughing at them. They were last in the morning mile every day and everyone would laugh. You know, those types of things have become very traumatizing to them. And so we have to not look at an individual's experience through our own gaze. We have to understand that they may be having a very, very terrifying, traumatic experience, even just entering a gym.
Yes, and I think that piece is missing for a lot of trainers, because particularly if you're in a smaller body, you know, like myself, that carries a ton of privilege, and we have not had those same experiences. And yeah, I think we need better education on that as trainers. I think to have a greater understanding of what that can feel like. So I'm really glad you kind of spoke about that, because yeah, like I said, I think for personal training, I think, you know, there's not many resources I've found for personal trainers who want to have these conversations and who want to make people feel more welcome in the gym, but can't properly understand what the physical or mental barriers might be to participating and, you know, being there. In your fitness utopia, what do you envision for the kind of future of the fitness industry? What do you feel passionately about that you want to see in terms of enough representation? What's your vision? What's your ultimate goal?
I think my ultimate goal is, I'm really passionate about the representation in the media message. So I would love to work with brands to help cultivate a more inclusive visual landscape, because it then opens up the invitation. So when people can't see themselves, there's the saying, you cannot be what you cannot see. And if you can't see yourself, you're likely going to approach something with a lot of fear, because there's the fear of the unknown, like I did when I joined the Run Clinic. Was I going to be able to run? I don't know, because I've never seen it done. Right?
Yeah.
So if we could, it's not just about, oh, wouldn't it be nice to see size diversity? I don't think gyms and fitness professionals understand the high level impact that representation would do for not only the health of your country, but for the health of their business.
Well, we have a campaign in the UK called This Girl Can. I'm not sure if you've seen it, and it's awesome. And, you know, their whole messages, and I got to work with them earlier this year, which was very exciting for me, because I think they're doing this well. I think they are showing people of all ages, and the particular campaign they did in January was about showing barriers to exercise, whether it was a new mum, it was whether you're having your period, and, you know, whether you're I think we had like a mother and daughter in the particular campaign. You had an older mum and a daughter probably similar age to me, maybe in their 20s, 30s, getting their mum moving as well. So we had all ages and sizes and backgrounds seen. And I don't want to get this wrong. And I know I've written about it in my own book.
It was over 1 million people.
3 million. I just didn't want to get it wrong. 3 million people got active after, particularly women. They kind of got more people moving, which is awesome. And I think it's only testament to what's achievable. And actually at the event in January now, I mean, can't believe that was in January. I was on a panel and we were discussing this with, you know, media and journalists and, you know, influential people. And I think it felt like the consensus in the room was that, yes, we need to see more, to be more, and we need to have this representation. So there are steps being taken with that campaign, but it's like we need to get that on a commercial scale. You know, I think that's where the gap is. It's a case of we've got it in this because I think this is a government funded campaign, and we need that on a commercial scale. I get so frustrated as well when the argument of, you know, when it came to this Nike mannequin situation, the kind of argument was like, well, you know, generally, well, we want, you know, if people are plus size, then they should be working out more, they should be doing X, Y, Z, but they're not allowed clothes to wear. They're not allowed these things. They're not allowed safe spaces. And I think it just undermines that kind of argument of like, you know, oh, you know, people should be doing things to look, you know, benefit their health and X, Y, Z and lose weight. And yet you're gatekeeping fitness. Because I essentially think that's what it is. I think thin people are gatekeeping fitness for a ton of people that could really enjoy it and benefit from it and find it. So you originally kind of mentioned that when you got into fitness, you started running. And I'm really curious. So my Train Happy ethos and the Train Happy podcast, we're all about intuitive fitness, listening to your body and finding the workout that suits you and not necessarily doing what you think you should do because, you know, this is the best for results, and results usually mean, you know, body manipulation in some sense, but actually deciding what brings you the most joy and therefore you want to do it consistently. So you kind of mentioned briefly before we started recording that you're not doing as much running anymore. So I just wondered what kind of stuff you're enjoying at the moment and what activities and exercise kind of bring you joy and make you feel good.
So before the pandemic started, I had joined a yoga studio. So I was doing a lot of hot yoga, which is something that I haven't done in many, many years. And I was loving it. I love the meditative part of it. I loved, my body just needs the restoration. And I'm actually working with a coach right now to train in Olympic lifting. So
awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. So I used to do endurance training all the time. So I was always running or cycling or swimming. And, you know, you'd go to the pool and you'd be in there for, you know, 2 kilometers, just lap after lap. And I was just like, it's just boring to me now. And it probably won't always be. I will probably go back to triathlon at some point or running. I love how running makes me feel afterwards. I don't necessarily love it while I'm doing it. There was a time that I just loved it. That was the only exercise I ever did. I just ran. But I feel like my interest in fitness really changes a lot. Like I'll, you know, be really into running for a few years and then triathlon, but like this Olympic lifting, I love it. Like I'm lifting a lot of weights and I've got the whole squat rack set up at home. And
oh, cool.
Yeah.
I think that's really important because I sometimes think, and I don't know if you ever felt like this, maybe not so, but I kind of put myself in a bit of a box when I was getting into exercise and then being a personal trainer. I was like, I lift weights and I should lift weights because that's what everyone on social media is doing. And, you know, I've got this reputation as someone who lifts weights really regularly and that's how I exercise. And giving myself permission to be like, yeah, I'm not so interested in that anymore. And like, I recently had swimming lessons and learning to swim properly. And I'm actually really missing the pool right now. And letting myself do things like Pilates, something which I had, you know, in my diet culture brain had said, Pilates isn't a real workout because you're not sweating, you're not burning enough calories, like it's not the real thing. And actually, I love it. And all these things that I kind of dismissed as like not being the most effective. And I had a bit of snobbery about it. I think it's really refreshing to hear someone just be like, yeah, I just lost interest and just because I was a runner doesn't mean I always have to be a runner and I can change my mind and I can do different things. And I think that's a really refreshing approach because I think, I don't know, we put ourselves in boxes sometimes. And I think especially with social media, the age of social media, you kind of like get pinned on being one thing and doing one type of fitness.
Well, when I think it's a lifelong relationship, I mean, it's gonna, for me anyway, it's gonna ebb and flow with different things. I love swimming too, but it's not something I want to do 4 times a week like I was.
Yeah.
Right? Where I'm in there and also just like, it's exhausting. I thought I was with you too. Like I thought things like hot yoga and swimming was just like light exercise and didn't really take it seriously. But then I started swimming and I was like, those are the nights you go to bed and you don't even remember going to bed. You're so tired. You're just like drool, sleeping, like I'm so tired. It's very effective exercise.
Yeah, it is. And for me, swimming has been a bit of meditative, similarly as yoga has been for you. That kind of ability to not be on my phone, not have anyone talk to me, not talk to anyone, kind of have that bit of solitude and just have to work. For me, the thing is the breath. I was just getting on top of that, and then we went into lockdown. So hopefully I will remember all this stuff when we go back. But getting that connection with the breath and feeling just connected to myself and my body was really lovely. I just really, I didn't have that before. I think, and you find that in different ways, and it's been fun. How have you found Olympic lifting? What's it been like in terms of, have you found it empowering? Do you find that kind of, I think when we talk about weights, we talk a lot about empowering movement. Have you found it to be empowering?
Very empowering. I mean, I'm still building strength, so I'm not, slinging the weights over my head in the full Olympic lifts yet. Very often. What I'm doing mostly is breaking them down into exercises that I can get really stronger at. But I love the process. I think that's what it is for me is, with the triathlon, there's a big process to that. And I love going through that process. And once I'd gone through it a bunch of times, I'm like, check, it's done. Now I'm going through this process. I love it. Learning about it. There's a lot to learn. It's very challenging. So I just really enjoy the challenge.
And I don't know, I'm getting the vibe from doing the races and the triathlons and all these things that you're quite a goal-orientated person.
Yes.
Would you say? And goals really motivate you. And me personally, I'm not really a goal-motivated person. I really like just moving for moving's sake. And I think at this point for me, fitness really just needs to be something where I'm just doing it and being, rather than having to constantly look forward and put pressure on myself. I may change my mind in the future. I'm very open-minded to changing my mind in the future. But I would really love your insight into having fitness goals and yet kind of like being kind to yourself through that process and not feeling always totally tied to those goals. I think I get a lot of messages from people saying, like, particularly I talk about intuitive fitness. So that whole thing is about tuning in with your body and listening to your body as like, what do I feel like I want to do today? And I always say that fitness goals, you can be intuitive and you can, listen to your body and train for specific goals like a triathlon. But it's about having that, the ability to have flexibility within your training and not feeling guilty and pressured, and kind of relieving yourself of that. What's your experience been like with being goal focused, but giving yourself a bit of that freedom?
So I think it was in 2018, I was training for a half Ironman and I hired a coach, and I don't think I've ever been so miserable in my life because I was training probably like 15 hours a week. I was never fast enough on what I was told I was supposed to be. There was a race date looming. It was an incredibly big goal for me that came with way too much pressure. And so I didn't make it. I didn't do it. And it actually took the love out of triathlon for me. I've gone and done one sprint since then, but it actually kind of took it away from me. So I think goals are, for me, I need to stay goal orientated. Otherwise I don't stay that accountable. And I think that comes down to personality type. So if you are the type of person that needs that accountability, even if it is just intuitively, like I want to move my body 3 times a week. Well, I need to at least have that on the calendar and make time for it and, have an accountability buddy. I've always had fitness partners that I train with, which I find very helpful. But it's very different when it's like, I'm running this marathon and it's in 4 months and I better get running, and you're doing it anyway. And, you know, it doesn't matter if you feel tired or, you know, like, and that's how I very much felt with the Ironman, was like, you better suck it up and get up and do it, because you only have 4 months. And if you're not faster, you're not going to meet the cutoff. And it was just like, I can't do this. This is soul sucking me. So I think some people need the structure of goals, and I'm one of them, but there has to be a very fine line on what kind of pressure you're going to put on yourself, what kind of, you know, big goals. So right now I'm training this Olympic lifting. I eventually do want to compete, but I have no competitions on the books right now. And I'm not going to put that pressure on myself right now, because, you know, I'm just enjoying the process.
Yeah, and I think, sorry.
Did I answer any question? I just feel like.
No, I think you did. And I think that's reassuring, because I personally cannot speak to being of a goal-orientated mind. That's just not how my mind works. And like I said, I really appreciate that perspective, because I think the misconception is people like, goals. I think people also think that goals are only for people who are like trying to lose weight or trying to diet, and that having a goal might be, you know, does that mean that I'm in that headspace? And I really think it's about the intention behind the goal as well. And it's really just evaluating, like, why do you want to, you know, do that triathlon? Like, what do you want to do about it? And if you get immense personal achievement from it and you enjoy the process, and I don't know, you're raising money for charity, I don't know, whatever driving you, I think that's totally fine. And really, if that's important to you, then I think that's cool. And I also like your point about the scheduling, because similarly, I think there's a misconception that like you couldn't have anything scheduled in. And I think in the context of like intuitive fitness, that it's like scheduling stuff's okay, booking a class is okay. I think it's also okay to be like, if you wake up, say you had like an awful night's sleep the night before, and you wake up and you're just like, not today. You're allowed to say not today and not feel guilty about it. And I think the main thing is removing that guilt and pressure that you kind of spoke about, which is really important. And so I want to kind of wrap up by asking you about a train happy moment. So this is a bit of a thing that I want to encourage people to really consider when they're practicing listening to their bodies, when they're practicing trusting themselves and, you know, enjoying fitness. So an intuitive, a train happy moment can be anything as simple as, like I said, waking up feeling groggy and just thinking, I've barely slept and exercise today is probably not the best thing. But it's also saying, do you know what, I've woken up with a ton of energy. I feel like I could do a really good 5K time today, and I'm going to have a go and see what I can do. And those are both train happy moments, because it's about listening to your body and responding to your energy. So I was curious if you had any standout train happy moments recently, where you had listened to your body in training, and what that had been like.
Yeah, so I'm I'm 48 years old. So I'm really like, before I used to just be like, go, 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 go. Like, and I'd be like, I don't understand why I'm so tired. Like, I would hear myself saying that all the time. And there were like 1,000 reasons why I should be tired. Whereas now I'm like, I'm very conscious of the energy that I have, not just in fitness, but in people, in projects I work on. Like, if I'm not feeling the energy, I don't have it anymore. So I'm not, I probably have more than most, but I don't have it like I used to, or I don't force myself beyond that. So this isn't a big moment, but last week it was the third workout of the week from my trainer. And I was feeling really tired. I had not only done the 2 previous workouts, but also I had been filming my own content. So, which for some reason I don't count as a workout, but it's like hours of filming. So
when you're doing, side note, if anyone ever sees any, when a trainer has filmed loads of videos or taken pictures of holding a press up or something like that, that's the worst. That is, it's so much more taxing on the body than you realize. I completely appreciate. Some of the most sore and tired I've been has been after doing a shoot of some description.
Yeah. So I was like, do I do this workout? Do I put it off another day? So I'm like, no, I'm going to at least do one set. And I hope to do 2 sets. There's 4 sets. And as I'm doing it, like usual, my energy starts to escalate and I finish the whole thing. And I didn't feel like I was pushing myself because I had already talked, like I already had the deal with myself that we're doing 1 set because I knew I had that energy and I might do 2, but if I don't, I don't. It's not a big deal. And I think that's the thing is we're so, because we've tethered this relationship with fitness with punitive measures, that somehow we're a loser, or like all these terrible things that we say about ourselves that like hurt my ears so badly now, but they used to be in my head all the time. Right? Like if I've had a client say I look like a loser when I'm like, oh, I can't, like it feels like an assault, because it actually is.
Yeah, it is. And also I find it interesting when, I don't know if you found this, but I also, and I don't know if it's a very British thing as well, of having people always apologize if they didn't perform an exercise, perfectly. Bearing in mind they might have never done it before, or those sorts of things. That kind of like that, I've had that a lot where I've kind of said to people, like, there's no right or wrong in the situation. And I think that applies to your own training as well. Like, we're just having a go. Like, this is all just having a go, seeing what you can do. And like you said, if you're actually like, do you know what, I've got it in me today, go for it. And if you're like, do you know what, no, I'm allowed to, I give myself permission to step back from this if I feel like that's the right thing today. And I think that's really important on an individual level. And I also think that's important as a trainer to kind of set that tone, whether it's with a class or with a client, because I think, like I said, this gym I work at, it's interesting, even they do like mini fitness classes, and there's one trainer who's particularly like very kind of almost boot camp, military boot camp, you're not allowed to give up, you're not allowed to stop, you can do this, you can do that, you have to do this. And I think that's a really common way of thinking in fitness, and I certainly felt like that myself when I first started teaching classes and working with people. But this kind of evolution kind of makes you realize that like everyone's coming into the room with the whole different energy that they had outside the door. And I think let people move and let people need what they need to do, and support that and encourage that and motivate that. But you can do that without making people feel guilty about, having to take a little bit of an extra rest if they're not 100% on it. And I think we need to have that balance of like allowing people to listen to their bodies and not constantly overriding just to please an instructor. I think that's the problem. I think there's a lot of overriding, like, oh, I'll just push through and then we get an injury, or I'll just push through, and then you end up hating what you're doing because you just did it anyway. And I'm sure, I think probably we can both relate to that in terms of when we were exercising for that, that body control. You just did whatever you thought you should do, and like you do all the burpees because you think that's what's going to do, that's the best thing, and actually you hate the burpees. And and now you don't have to do the burpees if you don't want to.
I don't like the burpees. I think that really where the deep work is in the relationship that we have with our bodies and movement, and separating that from old thinking around diet culture, and being more kind to ourselves, not just in fitness, but in overall life. And I think that if we can kind of like be unapologetic, because like you say, that's not just a British thing, that's very Canadian, where there's a lot of apologizing going on, that we do things unapologetically, that because who are you trying to please? It's you, it's for you. You get to decide. You're the boss of you.
I actually, before we go, can I just, one of the things I took away from your book and I remember that really stuck with me, and I actually wrote about it in my book and mentioned you as well, was how you described when you were hiring trainers, when you were going to find people to work with you, you said that, like, I'm the boss of me, and this is an interview, and I'm hiring people for me. You know, it's not a case of like, oh, I should be lucky for anyone who wants to work with me. It's like, no, I'm in charge in the situation. This is about me. And I really felt that, I found that really powerful. And I'd love you to kind of like expand on that, because I don't think I gave it justice. But there's a particular section of your book where you talk about interviewing personal trainers and finding the right person for you. And I just love you to just chat on that for a sec.
So I think you're talking about if they're the client, right? When they're hiring the personal trainer. So what I have found when people approached me as a personal trainer is they felt like there was a hierarchy, like that I'm up here and they're down here because I obviously know way more and you know, have got my stuff together and they don't. So what I talk about, and like, I'm not saying that, I'm just saying that I felt that from people, is that when you hire somebody to come to your house and clean your gutters, there isn't this sense of hierarchy. The reason that there's this sense of hierarchy between especially a larger bodied person and a trainer is because the person that is in the larger body that feels like they're unfit and unhealthy, that they're less valuable, because that's what our society is saying us. There isn't that tension between a gutter guy and a larger bodied person. So there's this tension that this person knows more. And so what I've tried to tell people to do in the book is kind of level it out, that you are the CEO of your body. You're the CEO of your life. There is no hierarchy. You're hiring that person just like you would be hiring somebody to clean the gutters, somebody to paint your bedroom. There should not be any hierarchy tone or tension, you know, self-esteem tension there. It's just a matter of fact, you're doing the hiring to get the best professional that works for you. And there is a list of questions that I tell people that they should ask. You have every right to interview a trainer to find out if they're going to work for you. And before you do that, you need to be very clear on what it is that you want from a trainer. You have to understand. And so I've asked my clients that, what do you want out of your goals or out of this experience? And sometimes I just am met with a blank stare. And they're just not feeling good about who they are or what they don't know what they want. So then I ask them to do a process of elimination. What don't you want? What don't you want in your life anymore? How do you not want to feel anymore? And often I'm met with, I'm tired of feeling sick and tired. I'm tired of feeling unhappy. I'm tired of feeling, you know, so we can really start to unearth what they do want and then start to create a interview from that. I know that sounds like a bit of a process, but I'm telling you, like I was met with my coach, Chris, it was a life-changing experience. So I urge people to really put the work into finding that right fitness professional, because when you do, it's a game changer.
Yeah, I'm so glad we touched on that, because I think it's so true. Oh, Louise, this has been an absolute pleasure. I feel like you've given so much insight, and I think people are going to take so much from this conversation. I can't wait for everyone to listen. I'm going to show your book on screen. So for those watching, we have Louise Green, Bigfit Girl. I'll plug you, don't worry. This is an awesome book, and I think a brilliant resource. And like I said, I mean, I'll be honest, I read this probably like 2 or 3 years ago, and I haven't read it since, and I'm still, you know, in our interview today, I'm still remembering a lot of things I read because it really stuck with me. So I highly recommend everyone go check that out. And then where can everyone else find you, your work, your app?
I mean, I think a lot of what I'm doing is on Instagram. So my Instagram account is Louise Green _ Bigfit Girl. And I also just launched a new website, bigfitgirl.com, which has information about the app and the membership that we run there.
Awesome. And I hope we get to connect in real life eventually. It would be really awesome to me, and I'm really grateful for your work. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. And I'm grateful for your work as well. I think the UK needs you.
I think we just need to unite and just, like I said, go international. And it's exciting because I feel like, this is getting a positive response, this approach from trainers and from people listening. I mean, we have listeners, so there we go. So I think people, I think the community is only going to keep growing, and I think people are only going to keep demanding a new narrative in fitness and more representation. So I
agree.
Yeah. So, yes, if you did enjoy this episode, please use the hashtag #TrainHappyPodcast and tag @TrainHappyPodcast. And we'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Thank you.